Hi, everyone. This is Terrence Cheng. I'm the Chancellor of the Connecticut State Colleges and University System and host of this podcast, Office Hours. Through candid discussions, Office Hours will explore the intersection of education, leadership, and economic growth. We will hear from state, higher education, business, and industry leaders, and students and faculty who will share valuable perspectives that inspire and empower listeners on their educational and professional journeys as we delve into the key issues impacting higher education. Joining me today is Connecticut's Chief Manufacturing Officer, Paul Lavoie. Paul was appointed as Chief Manufacturing Officer in February 2022 by Governor Ned Lamont. In this role, Paul is responsible for coordinating state and private sector efforts on behalf of the administration to promote growth in the state's manufacturing sector. He brings extensive experience in the manufacturing industry, having previously worked for Carey Manufacturing in Cromwell and Eder Engineering Company in Bristol. Paul, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Terrence. Great to see you.
All right. So we've got to know each other a little through the past few years. I love your energy, your exuberance, your nonstop positivity for the sector, but also for the entire state. So tell us a little bit more about your role as Connecticut's Chief Manufacturing Officer.
Sure. So I think, as you know, Connecticut is the only state that has this role. So it's a very unique role, very unique position. And as part of the executive branch of government, I'm appointed by the governor and housed in the Department of Economic and Community Development. And simply put, my mission is to grow and support the manufacturing sector. Now, I've worked in the private sector my entire life. This is my first job in the public sector. So I view all 4,658 manufacturers as my customers. And my job is to make sure that the Office of Manufacturing and the Chief Manufacturing Officer role is there to provide a high level of customer service for today's manufacturers in the state of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And that's a lot of customers.
That's a lot of customers.
So you're out there a lot. I know that, again, like I said, your energy, your exuberance, your nonstop schedule, but your engagement is absolutely impactful. And you mentioned that you had worked in private sector for a significant amount of time. So how has that experience working in the private sector of industry really prepared you for this role?
Sure. So to become Connecticut's Chief Manufacturing Officer, the main requirement is you had to run a manufacturing business in the state of Connecticut. You had to understand what it was like to make decisions each day that are around the success of a company. I used to say, wake up Tuesday morning and say things like, do I have enough money to make payroll on Thursday? Kind of those situations. And when you look at the Connecticut manufacturing landscape, if you take the fact that there's 160,000 people that work in these 4,600 companies, if you take out the fact that 60,000 people work in the top 25, the average manufacturer is about 22 people. Right. So these are small businesses. So you need to have somebody that understands what they go through every single day. And running Carey Manufacturing and serving in a very senior role at Eder Engineering has prepared me incredibly well for this because I truly understand the customer and the customer's perspective and where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. Again, being my first job in the public sector, the first thing I did for the first 6 months was to go out and visit as many customers as I can. And 2.5 years later, that has not slowed down at all.
Sure.
Commissioner Lehman asked me at one point, when's this going to slow down? And I said, I don't think it ever is. I said, because if I can do 5 a week or 10 a week, there's 4,000, I'm going to be a very old man if I get to all of them. But it's just a testament to the opportunity that we have to engage with our manufacturers and how interested they are and concerned about continuing to grow their business.
It's an excellent point, right? Not every manufacturer is Sikorsky or Electric Boat, these massive super important companies, but so many of our manufacturing companies are literally a few dozen individuals, and they're just as important in a different way because of how they intersect with those big companies and so on. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about that, right? Talk about how you feel the manufacturing sector has changed, and what we say when we're talking about our manufacturing programs, that we want to feed both the smaller manufacturers as well as the big industry manufacturers, is that the industry has changed. And it's not this kind of arcane or antiquated view of manufacturing. But from your perspective as the boss of manufacturing, really, for our state, tell us about that.
Sure, absolutely. So we're at a kind of an inflection point right now in manufacturing in that The only way for the United States to be economically sustainable in manufacturing is through innovation, is through continuing to drive innovation. And that's actually the state of Connecticut's DNA as it relates to manufacturing. We are one of the most innovative states, and we're one of the most highly productive states as well. So what we're starting to see is the large OEMs driving initiatives around innovation, things such as the digital transformation in the manufacturing sector, around model-based systems engineering and model-based design, additive manufacturing, robotics, and industrial automation. We have a workforce shortage, and we're going to have a workforce shortage for at least until 2030, which means that there's never going to be enough people to do the work that we need. So we need to drive innovation to get machines to do the work for people we're never going to have. And then the other area that we really need to invest in, and it's moving so rapidly, is AI. And how is AI and machine learning and the data that we're going to get transform the industry? Now, all of the large OEMs in the state of Connecticut are all doing this already. The Columbia-class submarine was fully designed in model-based systems engineering. The challenge is that 50-person, 75-person, 22-person manufacturer who needs to adapt, needs to change, needs to grow, needs to embrace this technology, all while they're trying to payroll every week and keep the door open. And so we're at this point where the larger manufacturers are changing and growing. They're keeping up with it. My office has to be fully engaged with them. And then we have to figure out in the state of Connecticut how we can bring along the supply chain in concert with our large OEMs. And again, having this role, we're the only state that's doing that. I mean, we get folks from Lockheed Martin on the call doing, Connecticut's doing what? What is the state doing? I don't understand. No other state does this. But that's the governor's vision around manufacturing, is how do we stay ahead of the curve as it relates to the adoption of these advanced technologies.
Which I think, I'm really glad you said that too, right? That we're the only state doing this right now. And I think that is a real testament to the state. It's a real testament to the governor and his administration and how he's been viewing this, is that trying to create that cohesion, that synergy, so that there is more of, continuum of experience between industry and education and training, so that we're providing that. I want to talk a little bit more about AI and technology, but I had a chance to visit with Ron Angelo at CCAT, right? And I feel like they're an organization that is trying to fill a bit of a blank when it comes to technology and, let's call it, 21st century or contemporary manufacturing approaches. And then another piece I'd love for you to comment on is also how many jobs do you understand right now are open in the manufacturing industry?
Yeah, so I'll start with the jobs. And we have 100,000 openings in the state of Connecticut. We're 10% of the workforce. So the number I use is 10,000.
Okay.
But you have to factor in that Electric Boat is hiring 5,300 people a year. Now, that's net. That's not net increase of 5,300 employees, but they have to hire 5,300 to meet their retirement and attrition roles. Go to the other end of the state where ASML needs to hire 4,000 people. And again, so these aren't net 4,000. So we talk about full employment. We use about 6,500 open jobs as full employment. Because if I have a job and I leave to take a job at your company, I create an open job. So there's always these open jobs. So we look at right now, the numbers that we're using, we're around 10,000 open jobs. 6,500 will get us to full employment. And that's our goal. Our goal is to get to full employment in the manufacturing sector by 2030. It's one of the stated goals in the manufacturing plan. As it relates to CCAT, there are three initiatives that we're focused on in Connecticut's manufacturing strategic plan. Number one is talent development, right? How do we are going to work to make sure that we have the workforce for today while we're building the workforce for tomorrow?
Absolutely.
My partners there are all of our colleges and universities, and technical high schools, the Office of Workforce Strategy. So all of the programs that we're running, we're fully engaged with, President Maduco from CT State sits on my manufacturing cabinet. I'm engaged with folks at the engineering level of all of the state colleges. And the idea is to make sure that we're building the workforce of the future while not losing the vision for today. The second is around supply chain resiliency. How do we make it easier to do business in the state of Connecticut and lower the cost of doing business? Right. Partner there is Constep. They're Connecticut's MEP, and they work around supply chain resiliency. And then the whole innovation and technology at CCAT is the center of that. But we also have a tremendous opportunity to engage with our universities in those areas as well, because there's a lot of work being done in our universities around innovation. And my job is to braid all of that together so that we all understand our North Star, which is the manufacturing strategic plan.
Yeah.
And then trying to get people to figure out where they can make a significant contribution to that as well.
Yeah.
And CCAT being, a nonprofit, gets federal grant funding and state grant funding around important initiatives. But we also work very closely with CT State and CSCU to make sure that all of those organizations understand where we're going and how we can best support them.
Absolutely. And that's really key for us too, right? And we're so happy to be at the table with you and all of our partners, because that's our job, is to make sure that the students that come to us and they say, hey, this looks like an incredible path for me. It's something I'm interested in, I'm passionate about. And we want to make sure that that is dovetailing with everything that you are doing, that our partners are doing. And so we want to just continue to put more points on the board in that space as well. So going back to technology, I mean, you just said it, right? That we may never be able to fill all of those jobs the way that they were envisioned in, let's say, the mid to late 20th century, right? We have to look forward 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. So what would you say has been some of the greatest impact of AI or any other technology that might have been considered emerging in the last 5 or 10 years? And how has that really impacted the game?
Sure. So the technologies that we're looking at are all designed around reducing the time to market, right? Mm-hmm. So speed to market. We went through a pandemic, and before the pandemic, price was king, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, whoever could make the part at the cheapest price was generally getting the business. And that was stuff that was done overseas. And again, we created these relationships with nations that were now using trade as a weapon against us. Mm-hmm. The pandemic started, and we found out that price didn't really matter if you can't get the product. Right? We needed to be able to figure out how we're going to reshore, shorten supply chains, and be able to speed to market. And I tell manufacturers now, I said, listen, speed to market wins, but you can't take your foot off the price gas pedal, right? You can't. Right. You have to be continually driving costs out of the business. And what we're seeing is these technologies, after initial investment, these technologies are allowing us to compete on a national scale and on a global scale. They're allowing us, costs are rising in other countries, and in Connecticut specifically, but even in the U.S., innovation is driving down the cost of making parts. We're seeing, like with the digital transformation, we're seeing things that used to take 3 months to get on machines, getting on there in 3 days.
Wow.
We're seeing, we're using additive manufacturing. It's my favorite story. We have a manufacturer that we gave a $100,000 matching grant for them to adapt additive manufacturing. They used it to make tools because they were getting an 18-week lead time from their tool maker, took their lead time down to 2 weeks. And because they were so quick in turning around parts, Pratt & Whitney gave them a multi-year, multi-million-dollar project.
That's great.
It's great, in excess of $10 million. And this was a 50-person company that has doubled in the last year by adopting these technologies. All around speed to market. And of course, the cost savings that they get from it as well.
And that's an incredible evolution, right? Yeah. To be able to do what you've always done, but with an even greater efficiency, even greater effectiveness, and ultimately with cost and expenditure responsibility. I mean, that's like every industry or every business's dream, right? I mean, even in higher education, I think that's a challenge we face. We have to continue to serve people, but we have to adapt to the 21st century. It's really, really important.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about when you work with manufacturers, tell us a little bit about what their challenges are, especially when it comes to the hiring side, right? When it comes to finding talent, what are some of those challenges? What do you think the source of some of those challenges are? And then most importantly, from my perspective, how can we in higher education and CSCU really help to address it?
Sure. So when I go visit with the manufacturers, the top challenge that I hear is the lack of an available and skilled workforce. And the first question that I ask is, well, how are you engaging with people who are creating your workforce, right? I mean, are you engaged with your educational institutions? Are you engaged with technical high schools, your community colleges, your universities? Are you fishing where the fish are? And what I'm finding is most manufacturers have not figured out that they need to change the way that they're recruiting. And before we even get to recruiting, we need to get them to stop and focus on retention and culture, right? The workforce that's coming into the workplace today is very different than the 60-year-olds that they're replacing.
That's right.
They think differently, they act differently, they work differently. They are always switched on.
Yeah.
They're always on, and time for them is not in a, clock in 7:30, go home 3:30 box.
That's
it's like
right.
this fluid thing.
That's right.
And in manufacturing, that becomes very difficult because we have shifts and we have work and we have production and we have cycles and all of that. But there needs to be this little culture revolution. And then when people start to understand the culture, they can start to think about retention. And then they can start to think about different ways to recruit. And the best way to recruit is to make sure that we have an industry-led, demand-driven education and workforce development system, which means that I tell as manufacturers, go talk to educators in your area. They are dying for you to give them feedback on what they should be teaching. Educators are not about education for education purposes. They're all about education for student success.
Yes.
The best thing a teacher can feel, or a professor or an instructor, is when they see their students succeeding because of the opportunities that they gave them. The only way we can effectively do that is to know what are the opportunities we should be training these people for. So when I talk to manufacturers around workforce, my first question is, what are you doing to engage with our workforce boards, Hartford Job Center, depending on the level of job that you need. Right. I mean, if you need engineers, well, let's go to Central.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
you need technicians. Let's go to Asnuntuck, Naugatuck Valley,
Absolutely.
Quinnebog Valley, Three Rivers. I can rattle off all the programs.
I got to take you on the road with me, Paul. That's right.
And then go to the technical high schools.
That's right.
Where we can go down to Platt Tech, where the class of 2023, everybody that wanted to get a job got a job at more than $20 an hour.
Awesome.
Right. I mean, and by the way, I tell everybody who graduates from a 4-ball program, your education is just starting. Listen, if you graduate from a tech school and you go into the workforce, you're going back to school at some point in time.
Yes.
You're going to go back to CT State or maybe one of our universities, because you're going to want to continue to grow your career and you're going to want to get the education that you need. When we talk about pathways, everybody's pathway is different. Right? Yeah. My pathway was, I'm a first-generation high school graduate. There's no kitchen table. There was no discussion. I went to a 2-year school, got a 2-year degree, and I had to go to work. I didn't have a choice. Right. I had to go to work. I went to work, but I had a boss who said, you're not going anywhere unless you get a 4-year degree, and I'll help you. So I got a 4-year degree at nights. Yeah. My point is that education is incredibly important, but everybody comes to it in a different way. Yeah. And the great thing about Connecticut is that we meet them wherever they're coming. Yeah. We have programs that if you go right from high school into work, don't worry about it. You want to go back to school, CT State can accommodate you. Yes. Right. And then you do that and you want to go on to a 4-year engineering degree. We have great schools with engineering degrees, and you never have to leave the state. There's these tremendous opportunities for us to get industry to engage with our education system so that we understand what the needs are and so that you guys can really do the most effective job that you want to do.
I could not agree more with everything you just said about how we're there to serve as many people as possible. And thank you also for sharing your personal story, right? You've lived a real life and you've gone through some real stuff and you've gone through that journey yourself. I think that's really impactful. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What do you see from the higher education perspective? What can we do better, right? What should we be doing better or more of, just from your perspective, your opinion?
Yeah, it's when you have industry and academia talking to each other, it really is understanding how to build that bridge, right? Because industry folks don't understand academia, and a lot of academia folks don't understand what that's right to do to engage with industry. And every once in a while, we'll get somebody who really gets it, and they can help do that. But I think there needs to be a kind of this process, like, how do I engage with industry? What is industry looking to do? Right. Should I reach out to them? If I do reach out to them, how can I engage with them? Another example, Hartford Public High School called me up and said, we're going to redo our manufacturing program. We'd like your input. And I said, you don't want my input. You want the input of the companies of who you're going to provide people for. So I need to build you an advisory council. Right. So I'm going to ask 10 manufacturers in the Hartford area to sit on your advisory council. Will you manage that advisory council? And they were like, yes, I never thought of that. That would be amazing. Now there is an active advisory council that Hartford Public High School is talking to the folks in the industry about what jobs they need and how they can help support them. But again, that leads to people getting placed into jobs. Right? That's the whole idea about this is how do we understand what the needs are, and then how do we make sure we're guiding students into those needs so that they stay here in the state of Connecticut. So I think it's the biggest thing is a better understanding from academia. How do I engage with industry? And then the industry has to understand how they better engage with academia. And then once we get them together, making sure that we're fostering that.
Yeah.
But I think it's most important that we have the industry voices
Yeah.
and leading academic voices in the same room. We have to really look at where we have the pockets of industry engagement and what those needs are. And we know it's clear. Like, we're doing an optical program in Norwalk for ASML. We have welding programs on the eastern part of the state.
That's right.
Oh, we have aerospace programs in Aerospace Alley. That's demand-driven, industry-led education and workforce development, not supply side. We got a bunch of students. Let's give them an education and hope they get a job.
Right. That's right.
We know that doesn't work. And
that's right.
And well, it might work if you get a job in another state. We want to keep kids here.
That's right.
And if you learn here, you got to earn here.
And it's not what students want either, right? Students don't want to do something and have a maybe at the end.
Right.
We got to give them as close to a guarantee as we can, where they go through an experience and we're going to land them somewhere. And what I love about what you just said about Hartford Public Schools is that you've also created a community that didn't exist before. Even if it's a micro community to some degree, it's community, it's engagement, it's relationships, it's understanding, and ultimately that leads to a kind of development. I think that's another really key piece to the work that you're doing. When you have your 4,000 plus industry clients, you're also connecting those clients to resources that are going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really big deal. So before we get to the kind of rapid fire questions, if you were going to talk to a group of students or you were going to talk to a group of faculty and you were going to say, hey, this is where manufacturing is going to go in the short term, in the medium, and the long, if you were going to prognosticate and give advice for preparation, regale us with some of that.
Yeah, and listen, I tell all of the deans of engineering across both our public and private education system, you need to be creating disruptive Industry 4.0 engineers. You need to be creating engineers who question everything. When you walk into a manufacturing facility, they go, there's a better way to do that. There's going to be a better way to do that. There's a faster way to do it. There's a more efficient way to do it. We need to look at doing that. And then we need to have an ecosystem that supports that. But if we don't have that talent coming in, we're just going to do things the way we've always done it.
Right.
We can't do that anymore.
Right.
Secondarily, when we're talking to students, you talk to them about opportunity and talk to them about literally in the manufacturing sector, you can paint your own picture. You can build your own career, and it never will be a straight line. It will always be a zigzag. But the beautiful thing about the state of Connecticut is that you can find a home somewhere in Connecticut. You can get married, raise a family, and you can have 3 or 4 amazing jobs throughout your career and never have to move.
Yeah.
And why would you? We have the best education system in the country. We have the best healthcare system in the country and one of the best quality of lives. We're the second happiest state in the U.S. Why would you leave, right? And and the other reason you leave is because you don't think there are career opportunities there, and we don't do a really good job. We do a horrible job of letting people in Connecticut know how great Connecticut is. In manufacturing, we're working on changing that tone, that this is, you can have a wonderful, life-changing, generational altering career in manufacturing, and it doesn't matter where you start.
Yeah.
It matters where you're going and where you're going to end up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have all of the resources to get you there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that we do have to really intentionally focus on the positivity. And it's not to say that there aren't challenges or things that we can always do better, but man, there's so much good stuff that we're doing right across the whole state and all these different corners and pockets, and there's a lot to feel good about.
Terrence, I tell people all the time, I don't measure us against other states. I measure us against ourselves.
That's right.
Because that's the only way we're going to be better.
That's right.
Because with the things that we do really well, if we're not measuring against ourselves, we get caught up in that, well, we do this really good, we don't need to do anything, and then we fall back.
Sure.
You can't do that.
Absolutely.
So, and you're right, we have significant challenges, but we know what they are.
Yep.
We know what they are, and we have plans, and some of them are shorter than others. Some are long, but everybody's identified what the challenges are in Connecticut, and we have plans in place to work on them.
Those challenges aren't particularly different from what any other state's going through.
Yeah.
This is the world in the 21st century. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to adapt to. We got to be ready for it. So, okay, so in that vein, let's go into some rapid fire stuff. What's the number one skill you think all students should try to learn?
Perseverance. Perseverance is a skill they should try to learn.
Okay.
Right? Which means just go forward, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter what's in your way. Make sure you have a clear vision and persevere through all of the challenges. Every time I thought it was going to be the end of the world, never turned out so bad after all.
Yep. Excellent. A little more advice for students who are interested as they go into the workforce.
If they go into the workforce, certainly in the manufacturing sector, don't worry about the first job that you take. Worry about the first company that you choose. And the reason why I say that is that if you're worth your salt and you show up and you work hard every day, you're not going to be in that job for very long.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous opportunity to grow in so many different ways. And so my advice is when you get into the places, don't worry about the job. Find a good company where you can grow, because you're not going to be doing that job for a long time. You'll do it for 6 months, maybe a year. Then you'll have a new job. Then you'll have a new job, and you'll be 5 years out, and you'll be going, "Oh my God, I have a great career. Look at what I'm doing."
That's right.
Because you showed up every day and you worked hard.
Yeah, and you hear that from leaders at various levels, right? Like, I came in as X, but now I'm doing something completely different at a much higher level. And so I think that's really sound advice. We talked about this a little bit, but what do you think one of the next big changes for manufacturing is going to be?
Yeah, I think, the biggest change is going to be all around industrial automation, AI, and the transformation of manufacturing from a kind of a hands-on type of approach to using much more technology to be able to drive productivity through the manufacturing sector.
Which doesn't mean that jobs aren't going to be there. It just means they're going to be different jobs.
Very different jobs. And again, another example, I was at a small printing company that make boxes, and they had a guy that was punching out boxes for $17 an hour. He bought a $300,000 machine to replace that work. It does it 100 times faster. I said, "Where's the guy running that machine?" He goes, "Oh, he's over there running that machine. He now makes $23 an hour." He said, and he's much happier because he's not punching boxes, right? So these are jobs people don't like to do. So that's the point. The point is, it's not a work replacement strategy. It's not a workforce reduction strategy. It's a workforce enhancement strategy. To bring all of this automation in, because people are going to be doing better jobs, making better pay.
Yeah.
And having much better lifestyle.
So, last question. What's one thing you're working on right now as the Chief Manufacturing Officer that you're just really, really excited about?
One thing.
One, two, five, whatever you want to talk about.
I'll give you one, because I'm excited about everything. But
sure.
Last week we launched the I Got It Made campaign. What we did is we did a study, and we wanted to know what young people thought about manufacturing careers, and we wanted to know what their parents thought about manufacturing careers, because we always thought that people thought they were dark, dirty, and dangerous. They thought it was their grandfather's kind of job, that it was like gross and disgusting and all of that kind of stuff. And what we found out blew us away. What we found out is they have no perception of manufacturing at all. Apparently, we have an entire generation of students that think things magically appear at an Amazon warehouse and get delivered to their house. They don't realize that everything in their life was made by somebody. The phone in their hand, the clothes that they're wearing, the shoes that they're wearing, the chair that they sit in. Somebody designed that and manufactured that. And when we showed kids what manufacturing jobs were like, they were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I didn't know that." And then we showed parents what careers look like, and parents went, "Oh my God, this is great. My kid could have a nice lifestyle with this career." So we launched the I Got It Made campaign to create a perception in Connecticut around manufacturing. And we're doing TV ads to reach kids, but to reach parents and to reach guidance counselors and influencers.
Sure.
We're doing lookbooks, right? So in every guidance counselor, there's a lookbook. We're doing a manufacturing lookbook that says, these are careers in manufacturing that you should consider as well. I always tell folks, my last frontier is to get to the kitchen table, where these decisions are being made, right? Where parents are talking to kids. And like in my case growing up, where there isn't a kitchen table, to make sure that there's an opportunity for guidance counselors and other people to provide kids with opportunities to really have a great career. So I'm most really excited about this campaign that we've just launched. We launched it last week with a big announcement, and how we'll be working on the I Got It Made campaign, which ties into Make It Here, and the Made Here campaign that we do with our ambassadors around showing young people in rewarding careers. So we're very excited to see the impact of that. But the creative work is amazing, and it's going to be impactful.
I love that, and I love that you're again bridging that gap, right? There's a generational gap, and you're making it very clear that this is important. Folks are important to making things continue to happen here in Connecticut, but again, for the world. I mean, that's just the world we live in. Paul, we're so lucky to have you in this role. We're so lucky as a state. We're lucky, as partners to be able to work with you. Anything we can do at CSCU to help you in this work, please, count us in, because it's absolutely critical to our success, and you're a champion, and we just deeply appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been great chatting with you today.
I'm Terrence Cheng, Chancellor of the CSCU system. Please Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and listen in to future episodes where we discuss the importance of higher education and why higher education should be a part of Connecticut's growth strategy with state and business leaders and students, faculty, and staff.